Hello and welcome to Why Medics Matter, a podcast for doctors, by doctors training. We are your hosts. I'm Dr. Amie Burbridge.
And I'm Dr. Simon Fraser.
Simon, welcome back to this short episode in which we are going to have a little bit of a reflection and a snapshot on an episode that we recorded about generational theory. Now, it sounds incredibly complicated and something quite scientific, but actually, it is what it says. We're talking about the different generations. So,
Absolutely.
Any thoughts?
That's a good one. I love delivering workshops on this. So how did my interest spark? We were asked by not them to say they had a problem, which I think more, and we hear this problem a lot in our workshops, is that there is friction between the expectations of people new to the workplace and the expectations of people who've been in the workplace for a long time. And I think the gap between how long you've been there and how long you started, that widening and the expectations can, but not always, can cause a sense of confusion and to some extent judgment about whether people are committed. And we heard from Tony talk about, what do we mean by generation intelligence? It's about the different generations, and what shapes a generation is collective experience. What happened in society when that generation goes through its formative years? What are the influences? And it's often geographically bounded, so there are some commonalities across areas. And I think what we're seeing is it's grown really. The gaps are getting narrower because what's the biggest influence on society at the minute? Technology.
Oh, I was going to say politics.
Yeah.
But gosh. Oh God. Let's not go there. But maybe that's because actually we are so much more aware of what happens in the political sphere because of technology. As soon as anything happens, it's there.
The stream of information, technology,
it's continuous,
and that's why we've got some of the phrases like Zoomers. The Zoomers are our sort of 10 to 23-year-olds. Our millennials. I'm a latchkey. Are you a millennial or a latchkey, Amie?
I'm a millennial, just about.
Just. I'm a proper latchkey. So I had a really fun day at the start of this week. So I went to do a workshop with the London Foundation School, and we did some exercise around generation, and we got them to divide into 4 groups. Okay, so one group, we had one gentleman who identified as a baby boomer, and he had to have a couple of friends who pretended to be baby boomers. We had our latchkeys and millennials, and we had to imagine what it would feel like to be a Zoomer. And it was hilarious, absolutely hilarious. Firstly, every group thought they were better than the other one. So it was this, every group was like, wow, we're so proud of our identity in this generation. It was just fascinating. And that's what we know. But it was really fascinating. We had 2 groups of consultants who are foundation program directors. And we did 3 exercises. Okay, so we got people to sit in the rooms, and we said, right, first exercise is, how do you like communication? Okay, how would you like receive information? And then we said the next group was, how comfortable are you with technology? And the last exercise was, how do you approach teamwork? And when we did the communication bit, some of the stuff that irritated the latchkey, the millennials didn't know anything about it. They're like, really? So was this like a group that you thought, actually, these are the most senior, the consultants have been around a lot of time, they must be homogenous and very similar. And it's these, and actually, even between those 2 groups, it was fascinating to see the difference. So yeah, I've got a question for you, Amie. You've got some children.
Many.
A few.
Many of them, yeah.
What's their age range?
4 to 15.
Are they the same? Do you understand them?
No. So No, I mean, I don't think I ever will understand my children. I try. But what's fascinating is that the difference between my generation alphas, probably, so my 4-year-old and my 9-year-old, and how they utilize technology, to my Zoomers, who are, my 13, 14, 15-year-old, who are much more screen time, much more, that's what they grew up with. But my generation alphas, my 4 and 9-year-old, no, they're to be fair, I don't really expose them to screens that much anyway because they are younger, but even so, they're just not as using technology as much as my older generation. And I wonder whether that's because we're consciously trying to distract them away from screens and reintroduce going to the park, games, board games. But also, I think they're seeing the impact of all of this screen time and the loneliness that this can generate. They don't want that. They want to be interactive and part of society in a very different way. So what's very interesting at work as well is the amount of times somebody says to me, it wasn't like that when I was a trainee.
Have you started, then the most important question, Amy, is have you started seeing it yourself?
I've probably said it, yes. However, I'm now more generationally aware.
Okay.
Now I've looked into generational theory a lot more, and actually we owe it to the different generations to understand their perspective. And I think all different generations should understand everybody's different perspective. It's like personalities. We should all try and make an effort to understand different people's personalities. We should also make an effort to understand different generations because we're all a product of the society we grew up in.
So I was asked a really key question the other day, and I think you've just picked it up a little bit. Well, let's go a bit deeper in this. So there feels there is a big responsibility for trainers to understand the generation coming through and to adapt and to flex. What is the responsibility for our new learners? Is this a one-way street? Do we need to be curious about each other and understand where we come from?
Part of good medical practice and those professional behaviours and knowledge and skills is curiosity. So we owe it to ourselves, we owe it to our patients, and we owe it to everyone who we work with from a learner perspective and education perspective to be curious. And that curiosity isn't just curiosity of clinical areas, it's also of who we are and who we work with. And absolutely, learners have the responsibility to be curious about who's teaching them and educating them as well, to try and understand why we might be doing things in a particular way, because that's the society that we understand and are aware of, and vice versa. So it's definitely mutual. We both, all generations need to make an effort to understand each other, because I think that will truly help harmony within the workplace.
So how do you create those opportunity space to be curious and learn from each other?
I'm sure that the doctors I work with, the trainees I work with, will probably find me annoying sometimes, but I'm always asking questions, particularly about AI, particularly about technology, particularly about how they perceive learning now in the workplace, leave, well-being, everything. Why? Just tell me a little bit more about that. Why? I'm really curious. And I could see them going, she's off again. But
never.
Yeah. But the benefit of going for a coffee with
that's it. Coffee.
Although sometimes I'm like, how much? What? I've just spent £25 on like 3 coffees.
Yeah, that's got to be crazy.
It's so expensive. But we'll sit down, we'll have a chat. And I had did this a couple of weeks ago, and I went for coffee. 11 o'clock, middle of the ward round, with an F1. I think it was an F1 and an F2. And I just listened to them talk and their perspective on things. And do you know what? It's actually quite similar, but their interpretation of the way we do things is slightly different. And it makes me feel a bit younger, to be fair.
And we've talked about one dimension of understanding in each other in the workplace, because I think understanding is really valuable. And we talked about some of the phenotypes, behaviors, beliefs are shaped by generations and exposure. But we haven't even thrown in the complexity of multicultural backgrounds and training. How does that, that's a whole nother angle, isn't it? One, we can't assume that the generation theory applies to everyone, but also how how different cultures perceive each other between emotionally expressive, emotionally reserved, confrontation. And we're not working just in one culture.
No,
we're working in multicultural, departments with multi-generations. It's no wonder there's a bit of friction.
I think that we need to start earlier in the education of understanding each other. This needs to start. I can't talk for primary and secondary schools because I don't work in a primary and a secondary school, but from a medical school perspective, this needs to be introduced from day one. We need to talk about the differences and the similarities, because we sometimes get to F1 and I'm like, it's just not there.
But I also think along that journey, which is absolutely spot on, is we need to think about ourselves. How do we understand ourselves?
Yeah. Professional
self-mastery, professional identity. Where, why do I behave or act in a certain way? What are my values? What triggers? And why might they be different than other people, and being curious?
Yeah. And it's all about professional identity formation. Absolutely. It's about having the safe spaces to enable you to develop your professional identity, and how it's okay to be different than everybody else. Being authentic and different and celebrating that diversity is really what it's all about.
Amie, thank you. I always enjoy our chats. There's a lot more to think about this, and I hope this has just stimulated people just to recognise, and it's a two-way street.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, it's a multi-road street. There's lots of roads at different angles.
It's a spaghetti junction.
It is. Which makes this lovely complex, because if we had 10 Simon Fraser in the workplace, it would be disaster.
There are 2 Amies, it would be disaster. Yeah. I think
Thank
one
you,
is
Amie.
sometimes. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody out there for listening. Goodbye.
Goodbye.